Welcome to Mogobe Nuggets of Wisdom podcast. My name is Mompoloki Lerumo Mogobe. Our objective is to enthuse, inspire, energize, and empower entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs of all stripes here in BW and beyond. We do so by inviting these entrepreneurs into our makeshift studio. Sometimes we call them to the restaurant, sometimes we go to our studio, and we ask them to share their experiential knowledge, their experiences and their expertise. And we ask them as many questions as we can, aimed at empowering you also as a viewer. Hello dear viewer, dear listener, my name is Mompoloki Lerumo Mogobe. I welcome you once again to another great episode of Mogobe Nuggets of Wisdom podcast. It's always an honor, a privilege, and everything else for me to welcome you every week to this wonderful program. And today I have superstars for this country. I have Nijel Amos on my immediate right, and then further I have Mr. Bissau Gaobakwe. These are local talents. He's a businessman and is a top athlete, but they're both entrepreneurs. And during the introduction, you'll understand what I'm talking about. Let me start with Mr. Gaobakwe. This is your second visit to the Nuggets. Welcome.
Thank you very much, sir.
Would you care to share with the viewer your background and your current business activities?
Right now, I'm really focused on seeing how I can help develop our youth and how I can help monetize all their talents. So this is why I'm here with Nijel today. I'm operating as his manager and his agent to see how we can monetize his following and how we can take advantage of his huge influence to help advertise our local products and his products and so forth.
Speaking of his huge influence, you actually have a business relationship with Nijel. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, basically my business relationship with Nijel is based on the fact that I think in Botswana we have a lot of young people that have got talent. We've got musicians such as ATI and V. We've got comedians such as Jamaica and William Last. We've got athletes such as Nijel, who, as you know, have short careers. So the question becomes, what are we doing to make sure that they can continue to feed themselves and their families even after their careers? And the secret behind that is to find ways of monetizing their talents, especially while they're still hot. So that's my relationship with Nijel. So we have a serious relationship where we have promised to make him a certain amount of money within the next 5 years. And our job is to communicate with the nation at large, with the public, to say, listen, this doesn't happen twice in our lifetime. Nijel doesn't happen twice in our lifetime. We only have one Nijel. He's an Olympic medalist and he's also a world champion at the 800 meters. Now, can you believe in 54 years we only have one Olympic medalist, and that's him? But what are we doing to use Nijel, who has such international coverage, to sell our diamonds, to sell our tourism, to sell any products that we would like the world to know about, our beef international. He's always on TV being watched by hundreds of millions of people, but is he carrying something from Botswana? So we're taking it further, and we're actually buying companies, myself and Nijel and myself, where we're using his influence and ours to advertise. For example, this water that we have here is a company that it's called Cool.
Cool, eh? With a K.
Yeah. So basically, this is an interesting product because what we look at is, because he's got reach, he can reach any gender, he can reach any age. So we're trying to focus on products that everybody consumes.
Yes, let's fix your glasses a bit.
At the top of that list, it'll always be things like water and airtime communication. Yes. And anybody can consume those. But this is a product that, if you like, is uniform, like airtime. So the question is, how do you get this product to stand out? To make it stand out, you must associate it with somebody that stands out. And people can take a liking for it because it's conspicuous. So those are the sort of things we're working on.
Nigel, I think this is a good place for you to chip in, to introduce yourself. Botswana don't see you every day. Sometimes I hear that you're in the US and all. I think until recently you've been in the US. Just share with them where your current activities and in terms of where you spend most of your time.
So she said Botswana doesn't really know me. Botswana knows my name, doesn't know the owner of the name. I'll sit in a place like this and people talk about me without knowing that I'm even there until I left, So because I spend so much time away, I'm sacrificing spending that time much away because I need to do some certain things that when I'm back home here, I can't do them to the level I am. I'm Nijel Amos. I came into the scene as an 18-year-old, coming from the farms, raised by the grandparents, never known my mom and my dad, and having to take all those responsibilities from a young age. You win Olympic medal at 18. We expect it to be better as you grow up, and coming from a country like that, the structure was not there in the place as you grow to be supported. So it brought those challenges along the way.
It's not so long ago. Just remind us when you won that medal, because I remember watching you live on television. It seems like yesterday.
Time flies. It's been 8 years from now. Ever since from there, I've been to another Olympics. But for me, when I look back at it, it's been 8 years of sacrificing my childhood, because all this happened as an 18-year-old. That means that now I can't be out there playing with other guys, playing soccer with other my street mates. I can't be out there pushing those cars. I need to be out there sacrificing stays in the US, go wherever I need to go to the camps, So it's been 8 years of sacrificing and going to the goal. And the current goal is just that I'm on the gold in Tokyo. That's my goal at the moment.
Our program is focused on entrepreneurship and promoting entrepreneurship for Botswana. And I know that you believe in sports entrepreneurship. You are wearing a Nike top, for instance. And I've seen you every time you're wearing something to do with a sponsor. Tell us about your understanding of sports entrepreneurship, and then I'll let Mr. Gaobakwe come in to tie it with your current activities in Botswana.
I think the first thing is that I'm doing a special sport, I say it's a special sport because it doesn't divide the people. People doesn't have to support the rollers or chiefs and all. I'm one. The whole nation is behind me. I'm doing a sport that's firstly uniting the nation. As I'm winning out there. So when I was winning the Olympic medal, the whole nation was happy. And it's a kind of you are happy rollers to win. It's a special sport. It's uniting the whole nation in one. And then I'll say it's a sport that is it's the winning sport for Botswana. It's what sells us. I see myself. I always say, if you have to talk about brand ambassadors out there, we are the ambassadors better than the president, better than the ambassadors out there, because we are the one that comes in the topic. When ask who is the president of Botswana out there, people don't know who's the one the Olympic, but people will know. So I see ourselves as
people know the athletes more than they know the politicians.
The politicians. We are actually the sellers. We're the one in front out there selling everything. So I see that as a way of saying, how are we commercializing sports in Botswana? Sport is still at a level in Botswana where we believe it's all about games, play, entertainment. It's not commercialized. As you see, we don't have government policies in places that gives platform for companies to support the sport. I mean, in countries like Germany, they say 3% of all the companies getting funded from the government goes from the sports, either as military or any. But any company that's funded by the government goes to sport. That's a policies that show that sports is commercialized in the country. But for here, it's still not commercialized. And the level where we are, I always say the athletes have grown more than the organization and the structure. Because now the organization structure can't see the opportunities from the athletes. You see.
Well, Mr. Gaobakwe, can you talk a little bit more about the challenges associated with leveraging sports, entrepreneurially speaking, and making sure that they are well positioned for them to be a good return on the investment that they are?
Yeah, it's very interesting because like what Nigel is saying is that one of our biggest challenges is getting our leaders. And when I say that, we are extremely excited about our president because he in himself, he's a creative individual who's well versed and well exposed, and he's aware of the kind of following and the kind of the ability sports has to even solve social ills. I'll give you an example. A few years ago, we had a problem in Botswana that the male citizens were not testing for HIV. But the females wear because it's mandatory when you are pregnant because of mother to child.
Yes.
So you're a businessman. Before we buy any supplies, like if it's ARVs, we have to project so we can budget. So how is a country supposed to know how many ARVs to buy from pharmaceutical companies, and how much is it supposed to budget if they don't know how many men are HIV? So we were called in to try and solve that problem. And believe it or not, the only way to solve it was to use sport, because we had to identify something that we know that men follow all the time, which is sport. And in this particular case, we use, because we're dealing with males, we use soccer. And we got Kaizer Chiefs to come to Botswana to play with one of the best teams here. But we set the ticket price so high, knowing very well that people would complain about the ticket price. And when they did, because obviously they wanted to watch Kaizer Chiefs, this was in 2004, since they were the champions
in South Africa.
I hear they're not doing too well right now.
Because of our life.
Yeah, but that's not for my heart.
Yeah.
At the time they were the champions, and everybody wanted to watch them. Most importantly, they wanted to watch them playing a local team. So we set the tickets about 200 kilo when it's supposed to be around 25 kilo. And when people complained that they couldn't watch the match, we simply said, listen, all you have to do is go, because we were working in conjunction with the American embassy, the government, and the development testing centers. So we simply said, go and get a normal test with the normal processes of counseling. And if you go and test at one of the development centers, we will give you a free ticket. And believe it or not, we got thousands of men tested. And I'm talking males as young as 6 years old. And some of them turned out to be born with it. And men as old as 70 years old. So this is the power of sport in terms of solving social ills. Equally, if you look at the most unique thing about what Nigel does, the reason why we're putting so much effort behind him is that you should always look at your costs in terms of your returns. So if you're an organization or you're a country that's looking for a high return on your exposure, sponsoring Nigel is not as expensive as sponsoring a whole soccer team, for example. He's one individual. So if we put a lot of money behind him, we can get a high return. Now what's interesting is that we also, to give you another example of how it can benefit Botswana, in 2009, every single company was trying to get into China. Because it was an emerging market. Your Apples, your KFCs. Botswana would have liked wanted a footprint in there, because we've got diamonds, we've got tourism, we've got beef. But how do you get into China to sell your products, or how do you advertise them when you know they've got internet restrictions, they've got language barriers,
system of communism.
Yeah, and the only way for you to be known in China is to win something in China. You know, so as you know, Nigel has raced a lot of times in China. But what happens is that if Nigel goes to China and he wins on that podium, as you know, Chinese are very computer literate. And this came about because they're only allowed to have one child. So grandparents, everybody likes to keep in touch. So they Google a lot. So once Nigel wins an event in China, if he wins an Olympic medal in China or in Japan and so forth, what happens in those areas that people immediately Google the country where he's from. And if we're prepared, and if we work together with the government, say for example, we have a Mandarin website set up already. Yeah, so then they can find out what Botswana has to offer, because as far as they're concerned, we're just part of South Africa, if you like. We managed, and you see, sport is more than anything is entertainment. Yeah, the whole pull behind sport is that people like to watch sport to ease their minds and to get their minds off the stresses of their day. So we did the same thing. This is something we did. This is exactly why we did Miss Botswana, and we put a lot of money behind Miss Botswana, because we knew that if somebody won the Miss World in China, then the Chinese, and that's how Emma ended up winning in
Emma
2011
Warriors.
because we put a lot of money behind it.
She was
So-
what, first princess?
yeah, she was the first princess, and automatically, they if you look at the statistics of the number of Chinese who have visited China since she's what,
Who had visited Botswana.
who visited Botswana, it's an amazing number. So especially these individual sports that don't cost us too much money. But understand, with Miss Botswana, we put a lot of money behind.
Yeah.
They had to buy a Mercedes Benz that they want. That's how we unearth talent.
Yeah.
So if you inject a lot of money into sports and entertainment, you know, you get a lot of attention
Yeah.
back, and you'll sell the products.
Now, I want us to talk some more about that. Nigel, you can chip in if you want. There could be some skeptics up there. So the question still has to be answered. Why invest in sports? Why should companies, private companies and government make a deliberate, concerted effort to invest in sports?
I think from the entrepreneur way of looking at it, you should see sport as any tool that you come into the market with. You see the athlete as any product. For the product to be out there and be really quality and people consume it, you got to be packaged, you got to work on it and put it in the shelf. So it's the same way for me. For me to be able to stand on that Olympic line premier, know that I'm delivered the medal, I got to have one training, preparation and everything. So what happens in our country, most of it, they invest on the results, not the journey. They wait for you to win that Olympic medal and they say, no, we'll give you 1 million for winning that medal. I needed that 1 million to build the journey to be able to win that medal. So that's the reason to invest in sport. That way it's more cheaper. You're part of the journey. You get to experience behind the season. You get to experience behind the doors, not only the 1 minute you see the athlete onto that. So you're building the story, and that's the story that inspires, not the results, you know.
You want to add to that, Mr. Gaobakwe?
It's amazing what he's saying. I like the part where he says, like, we're building a story. And he's saying, you have to invest in packaging anything. And, you know, there's something very interesting about sports. If you are, it attracts a lot of people because the athlete actually gets a lot of credit for being at a certain level. If you're a businessman and I'm a businessman, and if my father was doing well, it doesn't matter what I do. People will always give credit to my father and say he just inherited the money. And it's very interesting in America what rich people do. Like I know how you spent a lot of your money on your son to become a martial artist. There's a reason behind it, because what sport allows is that it allows a child to build their own identity, you know, because if Nigel wins, if he wins a medal or a world championship, you can't give the credit to his father, you know, although the father does deserve a lot of credit because he's being supported.
But it's him who won.
Yeah, so I'm saying, so what happens, what we're really saying is that through sports, we are able to stand out as a country. It doesn't matter how much money we're making from diamonds, nobody cares. But if we produce athletes, you know, it's such a unique thing that it stands out more than anybody else, because it's something that somebody has to sacrifice so much. So it also says a lot about the country as well. You know, if you are producing athletes, it says something about your organization in terms of a country.
That takes me to my next point. And Nigel, you are the best placed person to talk about this, the sacrifice element. Because the question arises, what does it actually take to be successful in the first place in sports? What is the level of sacrifice involved based on your own life?
Yeah, I think with my own journey, my own experience in the journey, being grown up in the farms, you know, being that little boy where if your flight passes by aeroplane, you know, I can tell the streets and screaming and that boy. And one day you wake up, you are now that boy in the flight to land into
in that aeroplane,
and you perform, you walk out that track. It's a different aspect from you. Everyone has some expectation from you, and yourself, you give yourself that expectation first. You know, it's like I was 18, I won my first Olympic medal. I was growing up, I'm 22 now. I was like, okay, I'm 22, I'm wiser, I'm more stronger, I'm more older, I should do better. You know, and then I walked into that Rio Olympics, I was knocked out in the first heats, I couldn't even make it to semi-final. And now you're like, you are 18 now, you're better, should have done all this. Now what happens is that you get to a point in level of sports where now it's not you find that it's easier to get on top, it's harder to stay where you are. So now the aspect of sacrificing every corner of it, your food, your physios and your mindset, mostly mental aspect of it, because you can't just train if your mental side is not right. I could train you physical as much as you want, but if the mental is not right, then there's no way we're going. So it was, for me, it was all about sacrificing that and leaving my family away. I haven't been with my family for the past 10 years of my life. You know, I see them only 2 weeks, 3 weeks in December, because I'm sacrificing for the big goal. If I have to be where the best facilities, the best areas with, Coming from Botswana,
Which
I had to
happens
go
to be
where there's
America.
base. Yes, it happened for me. I have to be in America. I have to be on the other side of the ocean. I always, every sunset remind me how far I am from home. And then I go to remind myself, why am I here? For the nation, you know. That goes into it. I need to make it for the nation. You see.
And then, of course, Bissau, the question that arises from this is, what does it take to create a successful sporting franchise, a complete package around the athlete? You know, I read a story of how, you know, Maria Sharapova totally sacrificed. The family left Russia and relocated in Florida, and they stayed with that child, and he practiced for about 15 solid years until he won the Wimbledon against Serena Williams. So that gives you an idea that the entire family has to be involved. But I want you to speak a bit more, maybe using Nigel as an example, but talking broadly about what it takes to create a successful sporting franchise.
Look, I think first of all, we have to appreciate the sacrifices that firstly the athlete himself makes. Because that's where the value is. If you have compassion and empathy for somebody who becomes a lonely genius, first of all, because when I'm 18 years old, I got to go out with my friends, I got to party, I could have girlfriends, I could dream about marrying those girlfriends, I you know, and I grew up and I lived with my friends. Nigel can't take his friends to Oregon at the Nike training ground and grow with them. So, you know, so first of all, what I'm trying to say to you is that when you see him on the podium, it should almost force you to drop a tear. And because I'm a businessman, if you can't drop a tear, then drop a buck. Because you need to understand what he's sacrificing for us. And what I'm trying to explain to you is, this is exactly why you get people that end up like Michael Jackson, and you accuse them of playing with kids at the age of 50, because you've robbed him of his childhood. And I want to be honest with you, it's not a life as desirable as you think. You understand what I'm saying? And to make matters worse is, especially after you win, to maintain that sort of performance is much harder than the first time, because obviously once you win a medal, can you imagine how many advances you get from girls? How many new friends come at you?
All of a sudden you're a superstar.
All of a sudden the temptations that you're having to deal with are unimaginable. You need to understand what the athlete goes through. You know, in anything in life, when we're building something, we have to understand, for example, the pain that the athletes goes through. I've been mentioning that you may look at it from the outside and think it's desirable, but actually it's not. Because can you imagine being 18 years old and, like he says, you were staying in the village, and before you know it, you were on a plane and you were being watched and celebrated by hundreds of millions of people. Now, what happens to you afterwards? It's a completely new world. Your temptations change completely. The worst part is you can't be a child twice. Do you know how long we all wait to be 18 years so we can have our first driving license, so we can run around with his friends? Nigel can't go overseas with his friends. And until you understand the sacrifice that he makes for this sport, then it becomes hard for you to understand how much we must put into it. So I'm trying to tell you that when you do find a gem like Nigel, you have to put a lot of time and money behind it, because for him to sustain that level as well, he's going to need a lot of support, because he's exposed to all sorts of temptations. Now this is a kid who's coming from the north of Botswana in a village. Now he's 1 week in Monaco, the second week in London, then he's in Beijing, then he's in Tokyo. Now can you imagine all the temptations he's being exposed to? What happens to him psychologically? You know, how does he fend off all those beautiful girls? How does he fend off all the opportunists, like the businessmen? How does he learn the commercial side of his business in such a while? So when you find somebody who's won in 54 years,
It's a rare gem.
It's a rare gem, and it doesn't matter what we're selling. If we're selling diamonds, if we're selling Botswana beef, you know, if we're selling Botswana water, for example, do you understand the opportunities behind when Nigel wins a race and he drinks this water and this is a Botswana product? Do you understand that that could transform us from exporting diamonds to exporting water the way the French do with their sparkling water? So for you to understand what must be put in, you must firstly understand what is being sacrificed, and secondly, you must understand what kind of reach it has, you know, and then thirdly, you must ask yourself, will you ever get that opportunity again? These are opportunities that you should feel like when you first saw your wife, you knew it was a once in a lifetime. You invested everything, and we all know the returns have been wonderful.
You're bringing a smile to my face now.
Yeah, I know. I know what makes you smile.
yeah.
But I'm saying to you, when you met your wife, I could ask you the same thing. I could ask you, what do you put into discovering a wife that's been as good to you as she has been all these years? You put your life behind it. So what I'm suggesting is for you to understand what should be put in behind Nigel, you must understand how rare the opportunity is. Firstly, to find an athlete like that, and secondly, what he's sacrificing, but the most important part, the reach.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want us to go into the brass tacks now and talk about how to monetize the sports and the talent. But before I do, perhaps an issue that needs to be addressed is the absence of good facilities here at home. Why is it that people have to go as far as America? Why do we have a deficit in facilities or ideal facilities for training for people at your level? What's the reason for that?
I think the reason for that, as I said, the athletes have grown more than the structure. So the structure is like, from the level of the structure, it's a development structure. I think when we're sitting down as a country and playing, we never see ourselves dominating at the world elite stage. So now dominating at the world elite stage, you want us to have certain setup. And then instead of us investing on those certain setup, we want to produce more of that talent that we have at elite level, but doesn't have development and all. So the big question I always ask, saying, if we go back to how I won the 2012 Olympic medal, we don't have a trace record for that medal. But now as the whole country, we say, we want to win 4 Olympic medals, 5 Olympic medals. What we go back and say, can we stay stabilized into this first? Can we repeat what he did first? Instead of looking, let's us get more. How did you get the one we have? You know, so that's the other thing that I think we are rushing to. We're rushing to be more.
Do we even have, Mr. Gaobakwe, you can chip in here if you want. Do we even have the right facilities? Do we even have an expectation of having the right facilities in the next 5 to 10 years?
I'd like to answer you by saying that every country is only as good as their leaders. And when I say their leaders, it's their leaders' vision. This is why I'm stressing that I've never been more optimistic. You know, I am because of our current president. He's somebody that's extremely switched on. He's somebody that listens to people like us. So we are looking forward. I'm looking forward to our next meeting with him, with Nigel, and ask exactly what Nigel said. To say, have we ever sat down and found out how this came about? You know, like
to reverse, so that we can reverse engineer and then replicate it.
Of course, and the bottom line is that if you've got a switched on leader like we have now, I can guarantee you're gonna see a lot of results in that respect. You know, and the important thing is communication between the leaders and the youth, and I think we're going. I've got a lot of faith in the future, and basically we're going to present our case to the president to say, listen, even the business community must be motivated to understand the benefit of sport. If we're going to go talk to Motor Center or to maybe just the same way when the president goes overseas to look for investment, he can be present at that meeting when we're talking to Mr. Dara to say, listen, let's sponsor these kids, and I'm sure he will. So listen, nothing happens without investment, and investment means time and money. Yeah, but I'm sure you're gonna start seeing great things.
Okay, all right. Let me address the question of monetization. How do we monetize sports? In other words, deal with sports as directly as an investment.
You see, the key to any business is to trigger a sale. Now the problem with every product, even if it's good, is that you may have a good product like this water here. The hardest thing is getting people to know about your product. So what you are asking me is a very basic question. It's your ability to understand that sport on its own there attracts a lot of attention, but your water may not. Now your ability to collaborate your product with something that already attracts attention is the key. And they call, for example, these endorsements. So what then happens is that people like sports because people like winners. So the most important thing about monetizing sport is that you have to be a winner. So once you identify a winner, I'm not lying to you, if people see Nigel as our best athlete and they see him drinking this water, they're going to associate this water with winning. But before they associate it with winning, they're going to see the water. You know how hard it is to be seen, how hard it is to get attention. How do you stand out? So it's as simple as, if this is the only water that he drinks.
So for athletes, what did you say is the USP? What is the unique selling proposition?
For what? For athletes?
Yeah.
Winning.
That's it.
It's winning, it's winning, it's winning.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, because if you support a winner, you yourself feel like a winner. You know, the thing about winning is this. You don't have to be the winner, but you could be the person that chooses the winner. Because it shows something about your vision and your ability to analyze. And it's in everything we do. It's in how we choose our wives. If we choose the right wife and she's faithful and she's supportive, you yourself become a winner.
Okay, I accept the analogy. Let's practicalize it. And here you are at liberty to discuss other athletes. I'm sure Nigel is not the only one that your company is targeting. How do we have a cohort of athletes that you work with and then actually market in the context of winning, like you say, and then monetize that process? I want you to just break it down so that the viewer understands.
You see, the whole concept, like I'm telling you, is as far as the businessman is concerned, is that we live in a very competitive environment, you know, and most of the time we sell the same products. We can look at the banking industry. They're selling the same products. They're selling loans. They're selling banking facilities. They're selling convenience in the financial markets.
Yes.
Let's look at water, same story. Let's look at the cellular networks. Okay. So, for example, if a cellular network comes up with an innovative proposition like my Zag, how are they going to let the market know about it quickly while it's still hot before the competitors take them up? They have to focus on where we are looking at as the consumers. And we're usually looking at the athletes, at the sportsmen, and at the entertainers. So once we understand that relationship and like Nigel says, we develop those structures, then if Mascom can go a step further and say, you know what, for the story, because everything is about content, how about I start identifying winners before they become winners? You know, then that you get the same feeling that a parent gets when their son becomes top of the class. You raise the kid, right? So that's the whole trick to it. You know? So there's no way in today's business. The honest truth is that business today can't survive without trendsetters. It can't. It can't survive without finding ways of standing out. And the only way is to focus on what we're already looking at all the time. So if you, Mr. Mogobe, we're at Black now, we're at Nona's at your restaurant. You want this restaurant to make more money, then you find a way to get people like Nigel to be eating here regularly. It's just as simple as that. And at the same time, you make sure that the money that you spend on Nigel, you know, is beneficial. You don't give him money to go spend on girls. You can actually pay, for example, for his coach, for his flight ticket to a race, and say in return, come and eat at every time you're in town, come and eat here. And then people associate your restaurant with where Nigel gets healthy pasta.
Where a winner comes.
And a winner. You know, nobody wants to be with losers. Because you know what they say, if you are surrounded by 4 losers,
guess who's number 5?
you are the fish.
Yeah. All right, you talked about having a meeting with HE, and imagine if you had that opportunity where you're facing HE. We're talking about this idea of creating supportive structures. What did you ask him to do immediately?
Okay, it's as simple as this. You have to understand that at HE's level, he's running a business. The business is the country. And the country must make more money than it spends. So what you have to look at in the country is, how does the country make money? Now every country sells something, otherwise we'll have a deficit. Because we import a lot of stuff, but what are we selling? How do we pay for these roads, the school fees? So you start there. You look at Nigel, if you're talking to us, and say, Nigel, first let's start with my products that are selling, but I'd like them to sell more. Top of the list, you say diamonds. And then you say, because you're looking at athletics, and you say, hang on, why does an Olympic medal, why does it have to be gold? Why can't it be a diamond? Oh, hang on, there's actually a diamond league. One day giving them diamonds from Botswana.
And he's participated in a number of them.
And he participates in the diamond league. So why can't we talk to the diamond league to use exclusively Botswana diamonds for their medals instead of using gold? That's an example.
Yeah.
And so, can you imagine when all the athletes are winning at these meets, at these races? What do you want, a 2-carat Botswana diamond? What does that do? I don't care what you say. That will translate directly to Botswana diamond sales increasing. Because let's be honest, people that are buying diamonds, we provide, 70% of all gems in the world.
Yeah.
Are people buying those diamonds know they're Botswana diamonds, or do they call them the BS diamonds? You see?
That's one brilliant example. What else?
Meat. You understand? If you look at it right now, there's more cows than people. I mean, if the cows could vote
3 or 4 times.
If the cows could vote, we'd have a moo president.
It's a good one.
But my point is, meat is directly related to his diet. You know, any athlete has to take care of their muscles, so they have to eat beef. And how about they eat the best beef? How about they eat Botswana beef? So I'm saying to you, if the Botswana Meat Commission or the Botswana meat industry endorses Nigel, to make sure that every time, because this is a question we ask athletes, he's asked, Nigel, what is the biggest part of your diet? Why do you perform so well? And how about he says Botswana beef? You know, and how about
that goes a long way.
Yeah, and how about we take it further, because he goes to, when he's in the Diamond League, he's in Spain 1 week, he's in the US next week. How about we set up restaurants, Botswana beef restaurants, and to make sure whenever he's there, and we can make them the face of those restaurants, so that him and his colleagues, whenever they're in these countries, can go eat at the Botswana beef restaurants. How about we take it further? You know, and tourism is an obvious one. It's an obvious one. We could start a reality show now with Nigel right now, and where he could invite his colleagues, and they would love to. The president could afford him to say, listen, Nigel, we'll pay for 5 trips. You invite any top athlete in the world, provided we're allowed to document it. So if I am looking to attract people in the Netherlands, or I'm looking to attract people in the UK, how about if we invited the UK gold medalist for the 200 meters for a holiday with Nigel in the Okavango? What sort of viewership is that? You know. So I'm saying to you, he's got it. I don't know.
So in other words, the possibilities are limitless.
But we have to interrogate them. We have to look at them. You know, so that's the conversation I'd like to have with the president. And I am so happy that our president is Dr. Masisi, because I know how switched on he is. I'm just saddened by the fact that, you know, obviously he's being forced to focus on COVID, and he's never been given a break. But we will get the chance to meet him.
We will.
And
we
these
will.
are the sort of ideas we'll advance
Yeah,
to him.
yeah.
And generally, when we see the results of this, once the country makes more money, if we make more money and we realize that we're making more money because we're utilizing the following that our sportsmen are giving us, then it allows us to invest more money into
Yes.
sport and the development.
Nigel, Bissau mentioned that you are 1 in 54.
Yeah.
Now, looking at the upcoming
Yes.
crop,
1 in 2 million, once in 54
one,
years.
yeah, one in 2.3 million,
Yeah.
and the first in 54
Yeah.
years. Looking at those who are coming behind you, looking at the efforts that are being undertaken,
Yeah.
do you see one or two or a handful of promising athletes out there?
There is so much promising athlete. I always say, if you think I'm talented, they haven't seen the talent that is coming up. I'm excited for the future of Botswana sport. But the future can't be there. We can't see the future without the structure, without things in place. Like the moment we can maintain what we have.
Well, I want you to
know.
name names. I want them to also shine. Who do you see coming up?
We have guys like Karabasibanda's the Olympic, Babuluki Tebe, we have the young boys, Bo Sama win the Olympics. So what I think is that we, as much as we fail to maintain what we already have to the world level, we can't produce more. The bigger question is like, what are we maintain what we have to stay in the longevity of it? And the fun example is that the organization structures, they've
I
seen
think
what
we
happens.
did very well in the Commonwealth not so long ago.
Africa Games.
That was it Africa Game or Commonwealth?
But Commonwealth Games is not the whole world. We're talking about Mam Sadinyana Kingdom thing. It's
Yeah.
not the whole world. We bring all the powerhouses together. That's world champs. And Commonwealth Games will dominate, but to the world level where we want to be, to win the Olympic medal, to win the World Championship medal. How we do that? And the perfect example is that with Amante, she had a long career, 10 years, 12 years career, because the government was investing on her. They took her to Dakar, she went to development stage, and getting to another secular stage and doing that. But then it stopped. They stopped to develop.
Well, I was heartbroken when that American woman denied her, not
This-
so long
that's
ago.
the part,
I'm trying to
hard part of
remember
the
her
sport,
name, but
you
it
know,
was very painful.
Sonia Richards.
Because she really
Alexander
had,
Flixie.
she was just
Yeah,
about to
Alexander
grab it.
Flixie, yeah.
And then she just came from behind.
Yeah, Alexander Flixie. That's the top of the sport.
One thing that Nigel is not telling you, and I have to let you know about this, is the efforts he puts into identify talent. Very interesting story. We've got a friend called Dos Musimanyan, who was looking to make his life purposeful and meaningful. Very close friend of ours, and he loves athletics. He happens to be from Maun. And at the time, this is about 7 years ago, the occupancy rate of the hotels in Maun around December was under 2%. So Nigel, Dos, Deepsi Sululwane, and Amantle, we all came together, the 4 or 5 of us, and we decided, listen, we have a problem here. This is how sport plays a big part. You're gonna love this story. This is a real life story. We said we have a problem. People in Botswana don't support the tourism out there in Maun. And we did a small sample amongst ourselves. How many of us have been to Cape Town? How many of us have been to Namibia, Durban? All of us. But none of us had been to Maun. Then we asked the question, why is it that we don't holiday in Maun? When someone says, look, okay, besides that we're African and we don't jump around when we see elephants. In fact, they're mostly pests for us. The problem is, what do we do in Maun?
Yeah, they're mostly pets for us. Yeah.
And what do we do in Maun after we see the animals, as opposed to Cape Town, where we can go to Table Mountain during the day and visit Robben Island and go jet skiing, but at night we can go and party on Long Street, entertainment. Second question, what can we do in Maun, because we're just not interested in sitting there and drinking the whole day that's recreational and meaningful? Are there any sports activities, for example? So we decided, you know what, we're going to go to Maun with Nigel, with Deepsi, who's our soccer star, with Amantle, and Dos as a trainee coach, and we're going to set up clinics. This is a true story. We went there. We called it My Maun Experience. It's huge now. We started it from zero. And
Wow.
we went there, we booked the stadium. Nigel spent the whole day there, and with Amantle, they called the whole village, and they started training young kids at athletics. Dipsy did the same thing with the soccer. And then what we did on top of that, we held events. We had races during the day. We had a fun run. We had bicycle races and so forth. These are events because if we're asking you to go out in the mall, we're not trying to promote a life of drinking, because sports plays a big part in reducing stress. And what he's not telling you is that, and he'll tell you the names of the athletes. The last 4 guys that won the gold medals, was it at the All Africa
The
Games?
current reigning African champion, both men and women, they're from the same coach in Maung DOS.
Wow.
Botswana team that goes to the Olympic now, 50% of it, that's already qualified, comes from the same coaching clinic, Maung. So, you know, we're all in that, you know.
That's very impressive, yeah.
Yeah. And this is a result of just putting in time and energy. You understand? Now
This is
we've
a
got
beautiful story.
Yeah. So what I like about him is that he takes a keen interest in identifying talent as well. Yeah, and we had the support of the government because they were helping sponsor my Maung experience as well.
Wow.
We can't wait to share this.
So what's happening now with that my Maung experience?
It's gotten bigger than us. You know, and obviously, okay, COVID hurt it in the last season, but we every year we publish the magazine, the newspapers. When you come back from, it's a huge thing. Every kid knows about it. But right now we want to, like I said, you don't understand how excited we are about Dr. Mrs. And some of these things we want to present to him so he could put energy into him, you know, like
into them,
energy into developing them further. Yeah.
All right, now I want us to talk about mental health. It's an area which is very close to your heart, Mr. Gaobakwe. To what extent does sports feature in addressing issues of mental health? And please be sure to give specific examples.
100%. Look, the first thing you need to understand about life for everybody's sake is that there is no human being that doesn't suffer from uncertainty, because we're always waiting for outcomes. When you're in school, you're stressed because you don't know if you passed, you're waiting for your results. When you grow older, you're stressed because you don't know if that girl you sent a message to go out with you will say yes. When you come into the real world, you're stressed because you did a job for me when you are a lawyer and you don't know if I'll pay you on time for you to pay your employees. So life is built on a platform of uncertainty. And the most uncertain thing the thing that we're most uncertain about is we don't know when we are dying, especially these days with COVID. But everything we do is projected, meaning the car that you drive in Botswana, you are consuming now, but you are paying for later. The house that you live in, you are consuming now because it's settling you now, you are paying for later. And we live under a story where you have a job and you are paying installments. So if you lose your job, you lose 2 installments. That's it. You have no house, you have no car, which means the wife goes, the kids stop. And because life is about food and shelter. So this is the story. If we agree that uncertainty breeds anxiety, anxiety breeds stress, stress breeds depression, then it's something we should all accept that this will always be there in our lives. The question then becomes, if it's something that will always be a part of our life because we're always waiting for uncertain outcomes, how do you cope? It's as simple as that. How do you cope with uncertainty? How do you cope with stress? Now, there's 2 ways to cope. The first way to cope is what we call instant gratification. These things work. If I pick up a glass of vodka now, and I'm feeling anxious, it's Friday, because I'm calling you, you're not answering your phone for what you may have.
And I owe you $1 million.
And you owe me $1 million. And my supplier wants his money. It's Friday, the whole day, then it's 7 o'clock Friday. Am I supposed to sit there and bite my nails and pull my hair out and contemplate a rope? I need to cope. There's 2 ways. There's instant gratification or delayed gratification.
I wouldn't recommend a vodka myself.
You wouldn't recommend it, but Mr. Mogobe, it works instantly. It works on the spot. On the spot, that vodka, if I take that vodka, it's going to work on the spot. If I take a cigarette, it's going to calm me down immediately. If I do a line of ketamine,
I would argue that that might be perceived as a negative way of coping.
Of course it is, but it's so well marketed. That's the problem. Because media plays such a big part in influencing the youth. So this is where it all went wrong. We were told that we drink because we're celebrating a graduation, champagne, a wedding, a business deal, champagne, a cigar. That's not true. Those were the guys that were marketing those products. And they are so intense. Even when you ban advertising of cigarettes and you can't advertise drugs, they still find a way. They're the guys that sponsor scripts for movies. So they tell the guy who's writing the movie, every time it gets exciting, every time there's girls, pull out the champagne, pull out the cocaine. And then we associate that glamour with champagne and cigars and so forth. So, and it's called product placements. Every time kids listen to Tupac, they hear songs like Puffin' on La, hoping gets me high. That means smoke the weed. Lil Wayne promotes lean. This is influential media. So the whole time we thought we were drinking to celebrate because that's the story we were sold and we bought it because it was sold so well. When in actual fact, we don't drink to celebrate, we drink to cope with anxieties and uncertainties. So the question becomes, if it's coping, what's the right way of coping? The right way of coping is exercising, which means sport. It's sleeping, and you sleep very well after you exercise. It's having a good diet. All sportsmen eat well because there's foods that are rich in things that produce dopamine. This whole coping scenario revolves around a hormone called dopamine and serotonin.
Those two.
When you use instant gratification, you consume the dopamine in large amounts, but you don't produce it at the same time.
I understand.
So when you drink, you feel good instantly because you're taking a gulp of the dopamine. That's why the repercussion is you get a hangover because your body needs time to recuperate and produce more dopamine, which you must sleep, you must eat. But when you exercise, simultaneously as you are consuming it, you are producing it.
Wow.
When you sleep, sleeping releases stress. Fatigue can kill you. You are producing as you are consuming. When you eat well, the good nutrients you are eating produce it. So it's a lack of awareness, a lack of education, as we were overpowered by powerful media. That's why government started banning advertising of cigarettes. But these guys, they always find a way.
They find other ways.
So one of the major reasons why we promote sport is that if we tell this whole nation, which means what we must do to sport is, I'm once again excited about my president because I'm sure he's going to start using our alcohol levy money properly. And what it must do, that money, is it must support sport at all levels. So we need tournaments. Every neighborhood must have a marathon every weekend, a swimming gala. And these companies must support, must give out prizes as phones. If now we have a society and a community that exercises, but we make it fun with competitions, with prizes and so forth, then it becomes a culture. So I'm sorry to say, if you go to Cape Town, there's a culture of people exercising the whole day. They are coping, Ramo.
I've seen it in China as well.
Yeah, they are coping the right way. So to answer your question, sports is key towards mental health, and all we mean by mental health is us finding ways to cope with uncertainty, anxiety, our stress, our depression.
And I know that you built facilities to help with this coping. Do you want to share a little bit on that?
It's a story that where I'll tell you, if I ever say to you, that's where I'll never give up, is that we've built rehabs in terms of the structures. We've spent millions. You can't, and this is because these issues of depression and stress will lead to addictions of all sorts. Sex is an addiction because it also consumes, can be an addiction because it consumes dopamine. And I must repeat to you, if you want to cope properly, you exercise, you sleep, you eat well, you get therapy. So what you are asking me about is social nets. We need social nets. Everybody's talking about GBV and they think you address it by telling a man not to be violent. No, you address it by telling a man to know how to get therapy, because these are all men. These things don't happen. They cause what we call temporary insanity. This is a non-violent person. Non-violent. But the stress of no income, of his girl leaving him because he's broke, makes him lose his mind, But if he can't talk to me, because I'm going to say to him as his friend, what? I'm going to laugh at him. I'm just saying this is how it goes. He needs to talk to a professional. He needs to talk to a therapist. You need motivation. That's why we have YouTube. Whatever problem you have, say, I'm having problems coping with my relationship. Get onto YouTube. You'll find people like yourselves who motivate, who guide people in such a. So you need exercise, you need sleep, you need you need prayer, you need therapy, you need motivation. You know, which is a beautiful way of dealing with stress as a lifestyle, is to help people. You need to help people in a purposeful way, you know.
Because you benefit if you help.
There's a feeling you get from helping, but you need to know how to help like a tree, where you help with your fruits and not with your core, not with your roots.
Yeah.
Don't give people what you can't afford to lose. Give them your fruits so that they don't hurt you. So yes, we've tried to, this is how our programs work: awareness and education. That's why we put up videos. 2, rehabilitation. So we're trying to build
videos on YouTube and on Facebook.
But the rehabilitations is something we have to do with the government, because who pays for these kids? The same way the government pays for. But in this particular case, everybody that drinks contributes to this. I'm sure
the levy,
and because he's mentioned it in his Sona, he's the first president that's going to solve this problem with us. Because after you rehabilitate a kid, you need the private sector to reintegrate the kid. Why is the kid depressed? So so he can redeem his financial situation. So you can't solve mental health problems and drug problems in isolation. You need both the private sector and the government. But we are as good as our leaders.
All right, so let's wrap it up on mental health. I want to bring in Nigel here and find out what coping mechanism you used.
Very important question.
I mean, having been away from the country, having had to deal with a semi-hostile environment which you are not used to. What was your coping mechanism and what were your experiences?
I think the first one always comes is defense. You know, that's the first thing that clicks in your mind. When I won the Olympic medals out there, people now start to criticize me. I had to first mode is defense. You know, first thing is that comes is like defend yourself. You know, defend yourself from all those things. But as you come when you realize you are in a sport where that's part of it, criticism and all those, that part of the thing that builds you, and a funnel that takes you to the end. So for me, that was the point where...
Why would anyone criticize you when you did such a brilliant job?
Now you run a race, people say, oh, how would you see it so early, and you get to do all this. But you know, you spend about 8 months
when you
been training.
Number one?
Yeah, you spent 8 months of your training, you're out there, you got hurt and anything. People love winners, you know. For you, they don't see the whole 6 months, 7 months, you wake up every morning, 6 a.m., you don't want to get out of bed, have to go for a run on the snow and everything. They don't see all that. So what comes with me was able to see
this. Was that something you experienced when you didn't do well in Rio?
I still experienced it. In Rio, I think it was the most hard part, because that way I was getting in point to say, I should do better now. I expected more to myself. So from there, that's when I started now to start to say, you know what, maybe I need to talk to someone. And just talk to someone who been in the position where I want to be. You know, we can all know how I want to break the world record. No, break the world record is 140. Just get in track and run it. But how many people have been in that shoes and have opportunity to break that world record? So for me now, I was getting to a point where I understand that I need to talk to people who have been there from a mental aspect to understand the journey really. And I talk to people like Caster Semenya who have been there trying to break the record. People like Gabriel Selassie who have been there. People like Mo Farah who have been there to say, look, when you get in that line going for 10,000 world record, the gun goes, you know, you're interested, what was going on in your mind, you know. You got to talk to people with them so that you cope on it. And now, there's a come for me to see.
About professionals. For
professionals, you got to understand to talk to people who have been there. So now there's come to me to be open up to someone, a therapist. I grew up in a village, I never have to sit across the table and tell someone my problems and talk to them. Now I have to sit across the table and tell this man how I'm feeling. What doesn't make me sleep? The result comes, the blood result comes out to show that, Nigel, you're not rested enough this week. And shows that you're stressed. What's stressing you? You got to sit down and talk about all those things. I think opening to adversity, that was one of the hard things.
We're getting to the end of our time together, gentlemen. Can you wrap up and give us a future outlook in terms of what the plan is? Not just in terms of packaging, Nigel, but in terms of, you know, your approach to sports as a business going forward.
The plan is a beautiful plan. We do it in life. Whenever you've got a live example, so this is it becomes very easy to share your vision with the people. So thank God that we do have a winner in Nigel. And for us to be able to convince our leaders and our parents that we need to pay a little bit more attention to these God-given talents that we have, so that we can monetize them, to build our economies like we've been discussing the whole time, and to sell our products and to help us with our mental health problems. We're going to demonstrate it through Nigel. We're going to demonstrate it with products that people will see every day. Like we've told you, for example, instead of Nigel sponsoring a brand like, which is also my friend's brand, like O3, I want Nigel to own his own water. So we accepted an offer from this company for Nigel and other artists and athletes to own this water, so that they have something even after their sports ends. And what I'm trying to say to you is that it's through demonstrating the profitability of using sport to aid business. I have no doubt that it's going to mushroom into so many other opportunities, and more athletes are gonna get attention. We've been through this with everything. We've been through this with sports, like I've told you how it helped us get people tested for HIV. We've been through this with Emma. People say, why are you putting so much money into Miss Botswana? It got us recognized internationally on one of the...
So you have a good track record in that regard.
So all I can say is watch this space, you know? And I keep stressing, when we have leaders like yourself in the business community, and we have leaders like Dr. Masisi who make time for us like this, I would love to be 20 years younger. I just see a beautiful Botswana coming ahead, you know? And with all that, if we can put millions behind Miss Botswana, at the time when we hadn't won Miss World at all, not even being top 100. Now imagine how excited we are when people like me
it looks to me that every time we put effort, like when we won Miss Universe and when we became first princess for Miss World, it was when we focused and gave attention. Yeah, every time we do that, we get the results we want. Yeah. So this is the time of the show, gentlemen, when you get to ask me any question you want. I'll give you a chance to ask me one question each, and I'll do my best to answer.
Yeah, you probably know what my question. So, Mr. Mogobe, how much can I expect you to invest in Nigel's preparation for all his future races? Or will you tell me privately?
Yeah, I'll tell you privately, but what I can hint to you is that let's have a meeting after this, and let's go to the nitty-gritties and let me see exactly what the plan is. In other words, I'm sold. I want to participate in what you're doing, but I need to be able to identify where I can slot myself in specifically. I know, for instance, that Nigel is going to the US and he spends most of the time there in the US. So it's not clear in my mind how he's going to be marketing in Botswana and US, how it ties up nicely. It's a conversation we need to have.
I can answer that very quickly.
Yeah.
It's how you are in Botswana at the same time you are in New York and you are in London through the Nuggets. You know how? The internet.
Yes.
It's one world now. So it doesn't matter where you are, it's like you are next to us instantly.
Yes.
So whatever Nigel has, if you invest in this water with us, when Nigel holds up this water when he wins in Monaco, then it's the same thing. He's here. He's here with us. People are gonna watch this video instantly. They're gonna be here with us.
So let's carry on with this conversation. What is your question, sir?
I think my question would be like, what's one thing that someone could have told you when you were still a little bit earlier? Something advice you think you should have been told it if you only could have known it a little bit earlier.
I could have acted differently.
Yeah.
In other words, what's the one thing that I think that I may have missed?
Yeah.
I try not to live a life of regrets, but what I've seen with my colleagues in business, Indian businessmen for instance, is that they've had the benefit of being second or third generation business people. So if it were possible to rewind the clock, I would have magically have wanted maybe both my parents to have been business people. What has happened with them is that my father was 100% a civil servant, then he retired. My mother was a civil servant, but then she had only a short period of 10 years as an entrepreneur. So I'm hoping that for those who come after us, they will have a greater time to take off in terms of learning from their parents who are already involved in business. I would have learned a lot more if I had learned some of the lessons I learned from home. But the reason I say that there are no regrets is that I still had mentors, people who mentored me while I was wherever I was at in my profession as a lawyer. So it's not 100% a regret, but I think a lot can be learnt by those who are exposed to entrepreneurship at an early age. And that's the purpose of this show,
Yeah.
to try and expose
Yeah.
youngsters to entrepreneurship.
Promoting a
early.
generational wealth.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, but you also told me, the nice thing about being African is that anybody older than us, it becomes our parents, even if it wasn't our biological
Yeah,
parents.
true.
That is
you
true.
shared stories with me how you used to spend a lot of time with my father.
Yes.
And I know now that you spend a lot of time with other kids and you mentor them. That's what your programs
So
do.
really, I have no regrets.
Yeah, you're probably excited that
Okay.
you can
Yeah,
be
pushing
you
where
can
you
be
are.
the father that you would have liked to
Yeah.
have had for
Yes.
your son
Yes.
and for us.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Paid for
and I
stuff.
know you are an eternal optimist, so everything in the future always excites.
You know me well.
Yeah.
Now this is it. All right, I think it remains for me to thank you, gentlemen, for sacrificing your time. You're very busy. I know that you're about to go back to the US. Thank you, Mr. Gaobakwe. You took time from your your tight schedule to be with us. Thank you for that. But before we go, I'd like you to share your contact details and what action steps the viewer can take to be part of this.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we always feel honored to spend time with you, sir.
Thank you.
But if you are interested in maybe promoting some of your products or your ideas through Nigel and Nigel's following and Nigel's brand and any of the other artists that you may have seen that we work with, please send us a message on 74258070. Make sure it's a WhatsApp message, and we'll be excited to share your creative ideas and see how we can monetize.
Otherwise, which platforms are you available on, and what's the following you're talking about?
I always use my name on all my platforms: Bissau Gaobakwe on Instagram, Bissau Gaobakwe on Facebook.
Okay, same with Nigel.
Same thing with me. You want to be part of the journey? We say what matters is the journey, not the results. Don't wait in front of TV say, how we not going to tell I'm on the journey.
Thank you very much.
Have energy